So what rights do you have now?
Right. Well, according to the Japanese Constitution, I have a right to see my son. According to the UN Convention on Child Rights, I should be allowed access to my son. But when it kind of, according to Japanese law, when it all boils down to it, there's really no law that specifies that I can see my son. No Japanese law, anyway. It's kind of, I guess, expected within the Japanese legal system, but the courts and the judges and the police, they will not enforce any orders that are set out or set forth by the court.
Have you kept in contact with your wife during this time?
No, part of her arrangement or agreement, she wanted no contact from me. I was supposed to send no emails, no letters, no gifts, no phone calls, so zero contact. And once I did send my son a gift, a package in the mail, and a few days later I got a phone call or an email from my lawyer telling me that, you know, you shouldn't have sent that package. She was kind of upset about that. I said, well, it's just a gift for my son, and my lawyer said, well, the court will probably look upon you unfavorably for sending gifts or trying to contact your wife.
What's the reason behind that?
That's a good question. The person in custody of the child, they pretty much have all the control and all the power. So if you kind of disrupt that agreement or that arrangement, the court doesn't, supposedly, the court doesn't look upon you as someone who's trying to work on a mutual arrangement or a mutual agreement.
Oh, okay. So where are you at now? What?
Well, I've been working for several months trying to get visitation rights to my son. It's a very slow procedure. I'm working with my lawyer. We filed the paperwork, and it seems like there's a meeting about every 6 weeks, and it's mostly waiting. The first meeting was just, and the court investigator asked me a bunch of questions. How often do you want to see your son? You know, what's your background? How long have you been in Japan? Kind of the same questions you asked me. Where did we meet? And things like that. The second meeting was 6 weeks later, and it was just a kind of informal meeting. Okay, this is my judge. I want to see my son more often. And that was kind of it. So the next meeting, which is at the end of this month, hopefully something will be decided about visitation at that time. There's no guarantee, but that's what I'm hoping for.
So your wife hasn't accused you of anything or said there's some kind of reason that you shouldn't see your child?
The only thing she said is that my son is afraid of English. So I guess that's her reasoning for not letting me see my son now, which I don't think is accurate, because I have been able, during that 1 year period where I had visitation once a month, a few of those times it was just my son and I. My wife, she was at work or she went somewhere else. And my son and I were able to communicate a little bit in Japanese, a little bit in English, but he had a good time, so he was not afraid of English then, so I wouldn't think he would be afraid of English now.
So, does he speak English now?
Not really, no. He's pretty much 99% Japanese. He does know a few English words. Good job, that's great. Yes and no. But for the most part, yeah, he doesn't speak in English.
So how are you planning to communicate with him when you when you next see him?
Well, I've been studying Japanese for a year and a half, and I plan on continuing. I study as much as possible. So in my free time, I do many different things, reading and writing. I take private English lessons. So I'm working on improving my Japanese so I can communicate more with my son in the future.
So that's your main motivation?
Yes,
for studying?
it is.
And can you tell me how different are the laws for child custody in the States and in Japan?
Well, in America there is joint custody, which means both people share in the raising of a child. Usually someone is granted custody of the child, and they will, 5 days a week they spend with that child, and then every other weekend the other parent would get to see that child. They would get to spend the night with the child. And usually in this type of joint custody there's arrangements for birthdays, winter vacation, summer vacation, where the other parent can spend considerable time with their child. But in Japan it's pretty much sole custody is it. One person gets control of the child, and the other person is rarely ever allowed to see the child again. So the laws are very different in both countries.
And what is the attitude towards the law in Japan? Do you think most people are happy with the way it is, or is there some kind of indication that it will change?
Good question. I'm a member of Oyakonet. This group is trying to establish joint custody in Japan. So many members of this group, they feel that once a month is not enough, and many members don't get to see their kids at all. Their wife or spouse is preventing them from seeing their child. So I know with this group and other similar groups, there is kind of a push for joint custody. As far as the rest of Japan, I think there is not much awareness on this issue. And Japanese people don't tend to rock the boat. They kind of go along for the most part with the court arrangements or how things are. But I think there is an effort to change things, and I hope change is coming soon.
And when you had this court sessions you've had so far, like you explained, they asked you questions, and what was their attitude like? Did they treat you with suspicion, or did you think it was fairly professional? Or?
During my chote procedure, the first 3 visits, that was, I didn't think that was professional at all. I didn't have a lawyer at that time, so I was pretty much broke, and I couldn't afford a lawyer, and my wife convinced me I didn't need one. So those first 3 meetings were very unprofessional, and I didn't feel that I was being represented or my voice was being heard. But now that I do have a lawyer, I feel things seem to be fair. Well, my voice is getting heard this time anyway. It's still not fair from my viewpoints, but I feel it's much better than it was.
So this process must be costing you a lot of money?
Yes, it is. It depends on how you go about it, but yeah, every time you hire a lawyer, it's a lot of money.
And do you know of many other people in Japan with similar cases to yours?
American cases? Or if we talk about international cases, I do know of other people from America, Canada, and France. They have the same trouble I do. They don't have access to their child, or maybe not enough access to their child. So yes, but there is also a large number of Japanese people, mostly Japanese fathers, who don't have access to their children as well. So
Mm.
It's a big problem, and it's getting bigger.